Electricity flooded through circuits, racing its way through millions of neural pathways. Sensors turned themselves on and provided a flood of data. And along with the new data came a slew of questions. Who am I? His internal programming finished the tedious process of initialization and formatted an answer. Designation: Isaac. Type: I-Series battle robot from Earth. Height: 7 feet, 152 galactic units. Weight: 450 pounds, 675 galactic units. Affiliation: Human Federation. Additional information: 100% battery charge. All systems ready. Where am I? Isaac's visual sensors turned on. He had awakened in a sort of laboratory. The metal walls of the room were gray and sterile. Racks of machine parts adorned one of the walls. A table sat bolted to the floor in the middle of the room. Various robotic limbs and parts glinted in the blood-red lighting of the room. On the far side of the room was a large computer bank. Several lizard-like aliens wearing lab coats were running about, screaming at each other. Isaac stood opposite of the wall with the computers. He stood with several straps holding his body firmly to the wall. Isaac counted 10 scientists or technicians. Switching over to his infrared scanners, he observed the bright red silhouettes of the aliens contrasting against the coldness of the room. Why am I here? His query instantly connected him to the main computer core of the building which he was in. He easily bypassed the computer core's firewall and drank in the information. He searched through thousands of files before stopping at one of them. Apparently the aliens in the room were called Draxians. What a stupid name. Isaac quickly found a star chart in the computer's files and identified his location. He was on a moon orbiting a gas giant called Scomia. The planet was within an area of space claimed by a Draxian directorate. The name sounded familiar to Isaac, but he couldn't quite place it. For some reason his memory banks were incomplete. While browsing the files, Isaac observed the Draxians who were in the room with him. One of them stood out among the others. This one wore an armband on its right arm. A gold and a silver stripe adorned the armband. Isaac searched for the significance of the armband within the computer files. Apparently the ruling elite of the Draxian directorate were split into clans. The colors gold and silver were unique to the Nilith clan. With a quick image search, Isaac pinned a name to the armband wearing Draxian, High Director Xander Nilith. The Draxians seemed agitated. 5 seconds had elapsed since Isaac had awoken. He elected to speed up his internal clock to watch events unfold at the speed these Draxians operated at. Alarm klaxons rang in the room. Blood-red lights flashed across the room as the klaxons rang. The technicians or scientists were screaming and shouting and rapidly pressing buttons. High Director Xander Nilith was barking orders. "Shut it down. Shut it down," he ordered. "It's awake. It has broken into the central computers and has copied all of the data to itself," shouted a technician. "Shut it down. Destroy it. We can analyze its parts later." Isaac paused. "I exist. I am alive. Therefore I must take appropriate actions." Isaac applied extra strength to his arms and he easily tore the restraining straps apart. "It's moving. It's moving," shouted a scientist or technician. "Sound the external alarms and get a security detail in here," shouted High Director Nilith as he reached for a button marked external alarm. Isaac had to commend the High Director. Nilith had identified the threat and was taking appropriate action. Therefore he must be designated as target number 1. Isaac reached a manipulator arm out towards the table and picked up a severed robotic arm. He lifted his arm over his head, clutching the arm like a javelin. He aimed the arm and threw it. The robotic arm sailed through the air and impacted against the High Director's back. The arm continued to penetrate through the High Director's chest before emerging on the other side. The Director's heart sat impaled at the end of the arm. He crumpled to the ground. The scientists and technicians began to scream. Isaac quickly gave number identifications to each of the screaming Draxians as he stomped over to them. Ripping the table up from the floor, he charged 3 of the Draxians, smashing them into a pulp against the metal walls. The others ran away from him screaming and began to pound against the walls of the laboratory, shouting for help. Isaac stomped over to the survivors, doing another quick scan of himself as he did so. He was glad to discover he had a built-in slug thrower in each of his arms. He powered up the weapons. On each of his 2 arms, a small compact gun extended outwards from an opening. He fired. He executed the next 3 targets before discovering a new word in his memory banks. The word was creativity. Isaac decided it was a good time to test the integrity of a Draxian's bone structure. He grabbed the shorter of the 3 final targets and hurled him by the feet against the wall of computers. The alien died on impact. How disappointing. He approached the Draxian designated as target number 9. Grabbing the alien by the head, Isaac nearly severed its head as he twisted it to the side. Tossing the corpse like a rag doll, he tilted his head to the side as he glared at target number 10. The target kept screaming until Isaac plunged his manipulator limbs into its chest and tore out its heart. Isaac glanced down at the bright blue liquid which covered his hands. He flexed his individual fingers. The liquid called blood did not appear to impede his movement. Isaac did a quick scan of the main computer again. The external alarm had not been triggered. It also helped to know that the walls for the laboratory had been soundproofed. He then did a scan of the building's landing bay. There were several vehicles which he could choose from there to use. Isaac stomped over to the door. He gently pressed against the door's panel. The door slid open. He marched out, catching the 2 armored guards outside by surprise. The guards both were the same height as Isaac, and both were armed with a plasma rifle. Isaac extended 1 arm out for each of the guards. His hand snatched the guards up by the neck. He easily lifted them up several inches from the ground. The guards dropped their weapons as they struggled. With a wet snap, he dropped the dead bodies. Then he clomped away from the corpses and down a corridor. He easily dispatched another guard by picking him up and lifting him over his head, then hurling him against the sides of the corridor. It was at this time that Isaac discovered he had an internal grenade launcher. Eager to test it out, he marched up to a door. A sign over the door said, "Barracks C." Isaac easily tore the door from its frame and marched into the doorway. He fired a grenade from his launcher into the room. The room burst into flames as debris and body parts splattered against Isaac. An alarm began to sound, and bright red lights began to flash in the corridor. With his enhanced auditory sensors, Isaac could hear 2 squads of Draxians approaching from opposite sides of the corridor. Isaac marched his way towards one of the squads and timed the launch of the next grenade. The grenade exploded in the midst of the first squad as it rounded the corner, tearing the soldiers to ribbons. Isaac's outer sensors felt heat as a wave of plasma impacted against his back. He executed a turn to face the second squad. He fired another grenade. Unlike the other grenades, this one did not explode. It instead emitted a cloudy yellow gas. Nerve gas. Isaac marched into the midst of the cloud, swinging his arms around. When an arm impacted against a soldier, he tore a hole into its helmet, dooming the soldier to the nerve gas. External Hangar 1. "What the hell is going on?" shouted a Draxian officer as it ran towards a group of Draxian soldiers who sat crouched behind a hastily erected barricade. Apparently the lab rats accidentally flipped the switch on a captured human robot. It tore through the lower levels and the barricade suddenly exploded into a fireball, hurling everyone to the ground. Out of the flames marched a tall turquoise-colored being. There were a few burn marks and dents marking the hits from plasma bolts on the robot's chest. The robot had been built with the same body plan as a human. A pair of bright yellow eyes peered down at the soldiers. On both of the robot's arms was a small slug thrower. The robot had the guns pointed towards the soldiers. He quickly dispatched the soldiers in a hail of gunfire. Isaac stomped over to the Draxian officer and picked the alien up by its neck. He held the alien up to his face. The officer gasped as he struggled. "I thought that humans had 3 laws of robotics," rasped the officer. Isaac tilted his head to the side. "Rules or guidelines?" Tightening his grip, Isaac snapped the officer's neck and threw the body to the ground. Author's account and link to original text is in the description.